Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase OutSystems in the Solutions Spotlight, an exclusive webinar event.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Solutions Spotlight featuring OutSystems. In the past few years, we've seen an explosion of business process innovation coming from organizations combining data with purpose-built software applications. Much of this digital innovation is being driven by rapid low-code application development. Low-code platforms unite design, code, and deployment into a single system that simplifies the process of creating business-critical software. And today, we'll be spotlighting OutSystems, a modern full-stack development platform that provides one of the fastest ways to build and deliver secure, scalable applications for the web and mobile. And joining us from San Francisco is Shinan Liao, Solutions Architect at OutSystems. Shinan, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're very excited about having OutSystems in the spotlight today, but I'm particularly pleased that we have a Solutions Architect who's going to show us the way around, because I think in the end, the way to get the most value out of these sorts of things is to have somebody who really knows both sides of the equation. Not only on the solution seller side, but also on the customer side. Before we get started, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up at OutSystems and what you see as the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, actually, I worked at a cloud consulting firm that primarily helped to digitize and manage companies that were moving to AWS, GCP, or Azure. From there, I became a full stack web developer and I learned how to build applications. And I eventually discovered the world of low code and OutSystems. And I thought it was just incredible how you could use the platform to build an application that would normally take weeks or even a few months in a few days.
Yeah, and again, we've seen an explosion in this market and in this particular technology, particularly around business process improvements. So the best thing for me, I think, is to take a step back and hand the floor to you, just to set everybody's expectations. We're going to let you go for about a half an hour or so with a little overview of the company and certainly get into the solution itself and all the power that's available there. And then I'll jump back in. We're going to have some questions for sure from the audience. I'm going to have a few questions, and we'll go through a little Q&A at the end. But take as much time as you need. Get into all the good, juicy features that are available, and I will see you in about a half an hour.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet.
So I'm going to get started here. I have a few slides to talk a little bit about OutSystems and how you can use the platform to develop high-performing applications using low code. So you can see here, OutSystems' mission is to give every organization the power to innovate through software. And the platform is a full stack, full lifecycle, modern application development platform, meaning you can build your applications from the ground up. And this slide is really one of my favorites because in most low or no code environments, you'll see a few options on the right and the left side to develop your applications. But you can see here in our IDE, we give you your real power. And just about anything you can build in traditional code, you can build on the OutSystems platform, but with a fraction of the time and the maintenance costs associated with the hand-coded projects. So here we'll talk a little bit about the platform overview. Like I said earlier, it is a full stack application development platform. So you can visually develop your apps. You can easily integrate with any system and change your applications with absolutely no limits. It is a full stack, so the front end and the back end is included. And it's a visual development environment, and it's called Service Studio. So you can use this to build applications across both web and mobile platforms. One of the best things about OutSystems is actually our ability to integrate and extend. So you can connect out of the box to the most common enterprise databases like Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2. You can also connect to web services, enterprise systems. You can integrate REST or SOAP APIs. And if you wanted to, you can also extend the platform with custom code And the best thing about all of this is it's all reusable. We also have something called the Forge, which is really like OutSystem's version of GitHub. It's an open source community code repository where you'll find a bunch of code modules, connectors, UI components that can help you speed up your app delivery time. And these are all built from the OutSystem's developer community. So you can use pre-built connectors to incorporate things like the latest AI or ML capabilities without having to learn the technical details of integration. OutSystems is also a full DevOps solution that supports the CI/CD of your applications. So we support the entire lifecycle. You can create and debug applications visually. You can test them directly on mobile or in the browser. You can deploy them across multiple environments and capture feedbacks. And the last thing I want to bring up is in terms of experiences, the OutSystems platform really enables different teams to create a wide range of rich and engaging digital experiences. And you can create user interfaces for any types of form factors, such as web or mobile, with things that you might not even be thinking about yet, like chatbots and integrations with virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa. So think a little bit about how your digital experiences can reach any and all touch points. And we ensure that the user interface looks great, regardless of the design skills of your developer. So with that, we're going to go into what we're going to be building today with the platform. So today we're going to be building a credit card management application. So think a little bit about how you can manage credit card expenses for your employees, a list of the credit cards for each employee, details of those expenses, and a dashboard. So let's get started. Here you will find Service Studio, which is our IDE. This is my environment. I'm going to go over to the left over here and click on New Application. You can see that we have two options. We can build an application from a ready-made app, or you can build one from scratch. So today I'm going to be building an application from scratch. You also have three options. We can build a reactive web app, a tablet app, or a phone app. Today, we're going to be building a reactive web app. And a reactive web app is an app with a responsive interface that runs in the browser. And the user experience is the same across all different devices and screen sizes. So we're going to be doing that. I'm going to be naming it credit card application. I'm also going to upload an icon of this credit card. And you'll see that the theme automatically adjusts to the color of the credit card icon. So now that I've created an app, you'll see that we have different modules here. So there's different modules. We can create a reactive web app module, a blank module, service module, library, or an extension. And OutSystems really is module-based, and modules are reusable, and they are components that you use to build your applications on. So today, I will go ahead and create this module. So this is our IDE called Service Studio, and I'm going to show you all the different components of it today. In the middle, you'll see our core canvas and our user interface. On the bottom is what we call our true change engine. And this is an OutSystems capability that validates your application. So if you have an error or if there's a warning, it will show down here, and it will not let you publish your application if there is something wrong with your code. On the left are widgets, and these will change depending on the screen that you're on. On the top over here, we have the one-click publish button, and it's green. If there is an error, it will turn red. And on the right over here, we have our 4 different layers. So our first layer is our processes layer, and this is where you can add application processes such as business processes, automated processes, timers, and scheduled actions. Our second layer over here is our interface layer, and this consists of UI components, styles, images, and scripts. You'll also see under UI flows, we do have some common layouts here for you. For example, we have a login screen that's already built in. We also have a logic layer over here, and this defines exception handling, user roles, integration such as REST or SOAP APIs, and client and server actions. And then the last layer we have is our data layer, which is responsible for data handling. On the top over here, you can see that we can actually toggle to see how our application looks like in different views. We also have CSS and theme editors over here. So if you have a theme that you're already using for one of your applications, you can actually bring that into the UI. So what we're going to get started today is we're going to create a credit card management application. And what I'm going to do first is actually import the data from my Excel spreadsheet into my database. So I'm going to go over here. I'm right-clicking and importing new entities from Excel. It's going to prompt me. I want to import, and this is what we call bootstrapping. You'll see these little stars that pop up over here. And now you'll see that we have our entities imported into our database. And the really cool thing about OutSystems is it intelligently detects what sort of data type it is. So for instance, if I click on company down the property section, you'll see that my data type is text. But for the date, it will automatically suggest that as a date time. Same with the amount, it will suggest that as a currency. So what I'm going to do now is go back to my main flow. And this is an option that we have, and it's called scaffolding. And basically what that means is all we have to do is click and drag, and it will create two screens for me. So it will create a list and detail screen for the credit cards, and it will also create a card detail screen. So I can click into that, and you'll see it's created a card list screen for me with search built in as well as pagination. It also has the basic CRUD built in as well. So what I'm going to do is go to my interface, and I want to go to the card details screen. And what I really want to do on this screen is I want to create an image over here where if it's a Visa card, I want the Visa credit card to show up. And if it's a MasterCard, I want the MasterCard logo to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this widget over here. On the left, we have the widgets that are available to me. I'm going to go ahead and just click the if condition, drag that over, and it's going to tell me on the bottom right to suggest a condition. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say get cards by the list current card type. So I'm going to say if this card that I'm looking at is a Visa, I want to upload an image of the Visa credit card. So what I'm going to do next is go to my images, and I'm going to import images. And I have a Visa credit card here. And I also have a MasterCard credit card here. So I'm going to say this is going to be a Visa credit card. And then for the false condition, I'm going to say this is a MasterCard. So now the logic is built in for if the if condition is true, it's going to show a Visa credit card. If it's false, we're going to show a MasterCard credit card. The next thing I'm going to do on this screen is I want to show a list of expenses so that when this credit card is brought up, I want to show a list of expenses for this card. So that's pretty simple. All I'm going to do is go to my data tab, and I'm just going to click and drag and bring that down here. So now you see that I have all of the details from my expenses. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these columns because I don't need them. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the image URL column. And on the top over here, you'll see that I have options to delete columns. I'm going to delete the month name, and the card number. The next thing I want to do over here is I actually want the logo of Amazon.com to show up. So I'm just going to click and drag this image, and I'm going to bring it next to Amazon. We can adjust the styling over here. And on the bottom right where it says type, I'm going to change that to an external URL. And I want this to be the image URL from the expenses. So now that's showing up correctly for me. I also want to delete the pagination here because I don't want that. I want to adjust the styling because I don't want this row to be so wide. So on the bottom right, you'll see that we have properties, but we also have a style sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this, and maybe I'll do 400. Now, the next thing I want to do is I actually want to filter the expenses depending on the credit card I'm looking at. So I don't want to see the expenses for every single credit card. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to click on this aggregate. And what an aggregate is, it allows you to fetch data using an optimized query that absorbs the changes in the data model, and it can load local database data fetched from the server. So over here in our aggregate, I just want to filter expenses depending on the credit card that I'm looking at. So what I'm going to do now is I want to go to filters, and I want to add a filter. So I just want to say that the expense card number equals the get card by ID list current card number, and done. So in order to preview my data, I just want to publish it really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and click a publish. And what this is doing is it's verifying my code, it's updating, and it's compiling the code behind the scenes. You'll see that I actually have an error here, and it says that I have missing or incompatible dependencies. And what this basically means is I am using modules from previous applications or different applications. For instance, if I'm using UI widget, that's from a different application. And those applications have since been updated or have since been refreshed, and I'm using an older version of Service Studio. I just have to go and update that. So I'm going to go ahead and just update all of that. And now it's updating and uploading everything again. So if you have questions on whether or not one module can be updated and if that change will be reflected on the second module, that's possible, and that's how you'll do it. So you'll see it's pretty quick. So while we're waiting for that to finish, the next thing I want to do is actually add a transition screen. So I want to go to my card details, and I want to add a transition to this back button so that when I click back button, it transitions from the left. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the back button over here. And down in the property section, you'll see that I have transitions. And I just want to say I want to slide from the left. I'm going to go back to my card screen. And I want to say that when I actually click on the link itself, I want to transition from the right. So now that's done. The next thing I want to do is actually create a dashboard. So I'm going to right click on main flow, and I'm going to add a screen. And you'll see that we actually have a ton of different layout that's already pre-made for you. But what we're going to do today is actually create an empty screen. I'm going to name that as a dashboard. Here it is. And you'll see that it is completely blank. So I want to add 3 parts to this. I want to add credit card expenses to the very top. I also want to add the top 5 vendors that our employees are spending their monies on. And I also want to add a stock graph. And for this scenario, I have Apple stock that I want to see the last 30 days of. So I'm going to go over here to the left where my widgets are. I want to add a card section here. I'm going to name this credit card expenses. Now I'm going to drag a container to the very bottom. I want there to be a little spacing between the two just so it looks a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and just add that spacing. I'm going to add 2 columns within that container. And in those containers, I want to add another cart section. So I didn't do that correctly. So I'm going to go down to my widget tree over here, and I'm just going to drag this over here. And I want to drag the other one to this one. So I'm going to name this top 5 vendors. Or maybe top 5 companies. And here I will say last 30 days of Apple stock. So now we have our dashboard layout ready, and you can see how easy it is for me to build out a layout just using the UI widgets on the left over here. So I'm going to get out of my widget tree. And what I want to do now on my dashboard is I want to fetch data from my database. So we have 2 options, fetch the data, and then we also have fetch data from other sources. So I'm just going to click on this, and you will see that it brings up an aggregate. I want to import the expenses database. And I just want to build out how I want my graph to be. I want to show the expenses by the employee per month, but I don't have the name of the employee available to me in my expenses chart. So I actually have to bring in another data point, which is my card. And I need to add a join to that. So if you're wondering whether or not we can do joins, we can. So I'm going to expense with card, and the condition must be set. So I will say that the expense card number has to equal the card number. So now what I want to do is I want to group the expenses by month. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to group by month. I also want to group it by the month name. So I'm going to right click, group by month name. And I want to sum all of the expense amounts for this month. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to sum it. I'm going to change the label to just say amount. And I'm going to sort this month from A to Z, because I want to see the first month first. So I want to see January first. And the last thing I want to do is I just want to group by the name of the employee, because I want to see all the different employees. So group by name. So now this aggregate is complete. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I want to add a column chart to this dashboard. So I'm going to go over here, add a column chart. And you'll see that there's an arrow over here. So I'm going to go down to this source data point, and I'm going to add a source. And I'm going to choose that aggregate we had just created with the filters and the join conditions. So the label, that's going to be the month name. The value will be the amount, which is the total expense amount. The data series will be the name of the employee. And then the tooltip, I'm just going to concatenate name plus the amount. So I want this to be stacked, and I want to hide the legend. Okay, now that's done. The next step I want to do is I want to show the top 5 vendors that we're spending money on. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm also going to create another aggregate. I'm going to fetch data from database. And in this scenario, we're going to choose the expenses. So I want to group this by image URL. I also want to group this by company. I'm going to go ahead and right click, group by company. And I want to sum the total amount. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to right click and I want to sort Z to A because I actually want to see the highest number first. And you'll see our highest is actually McDonald's followed by Uber. I'm going to change this name to just the amount. And I'm going to rename our aggregate from get expenses to get top 5 companies. And I can limit the max record. So in this scenario, I'm going to limit it to 5 because I only want to see the top 5 companies. So I'm going to finish doing that. And I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And all I'm going to do in this situation is click and drag. And we're scaffolding again, and we're just bringing that over. So I'm going to delete the pagination because I just want to show the top 5. I'm going to also delete the column for the image URL, and I want to make sure that the column is on the left. So I'm just going to switch that over. I also want to add an image icon. Make that a little bit smaller. Change this to an external URL for the image URL. And then last thing I want to do here is for the row cell itself, I want to make sure that it's a little bit smaller. So I changed that to 200px. So the last thing I want to do on this page is I just want to show my Apple stock because that's what I'm interested in for the last 30 days. So I'm going to go to my logic tab. And I want to consume a REST API. So I'm going to right click and you can see we have options to expose or consume. I'm going to consume this. We have options to add a single method or add multiple methods. I'm going to go ahead and add a single method. We have different methods. So you can see we have get, post, put, delete, and patch. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this. I can test, and I just want to test APL for the last month and test this out. And it's getting an OK. So I'm going to go ahead and finish. And yes, I want to use the response from this test. So you can see that under REST, we actually have our server action created. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I want to fetch data from other sources. I'm going to rename this data action. Get stock history. And in my action flow, I just want to bring in the server action I just created. For the symbol, AAPL. And the range will be 1 month. And you can see if I expand that, when it calls, it will get a response back. So I'm actually going to copy this structure and I'm going to copy and pass it into the interface because this is the response that I want. So I'm going to go back to my interface. I'm going to delete this output and I'm going to pass in that response. And the next thing I want to do is create and assign over here. I'm going to assign the response structure with the get chart.response data. So now this is done. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I just want to bring in a line chart. So I want this to show my get stock history response. I want the value to be closed. I want to hide legend. And then if I just open this up, I want the rotation to be 30. So now we're completely done with our dashboard. The last thing I want to do is I want to make this the default screen so that when someone logs in, this is the first screen that they see. So I'm going to mark this as the default screen. And maybe I also want to add in a theme for my page. So I can go to my theme editor. I can select an image if I want, or maybe I can change the font. So what I'm going to do now is just change this to Roboto. And maybe I want this to be, let's say dark blue. I'm going to click done, and now I'm going to hit the one-click publish button, and now that's publishing it to my environment. So while we're waiting for that to finish publishing, it should only take a minute or two. I also want to show you very quickly our Forge, which is on the top left. It is available in the browser, but we can also visit it here if we'd like. So this is our Forge, and then you see that we have over 4,500 different components. And if you want to bring something into your application, all you really have to do is click on it and install it into your environment. So you see we have a ton of different ones available, ones for mobile, ones for reactive, and of course, service and web. So this is now finished. I'm going to go ahead and just open this up. I'm going to bring this over, and you'll see that we have the very beautiful dark blue theme. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this is our application, credit card application that we just built, and you can see how quick it was. Here I can see all of the total expenses per employee, how much they've spent. If I scroll down, I can see the top 5 companies that we're spending our money on, McDonald's, followed by Uber, and then the last 30 days of Apple stock. So it was pretty low the past 2 days, and now it's a little bit higher. On the top over here, we also have an option to click on the cards, and I'm able to actually click on a card list for all of my employees. CRUD is built in, so we can actually add a card if we'd like. We can also search. So if I were to search, Warren Cromman pops up. I can also click on this card, and you'll notice that when I click on the card that we do have the nice transition that's coming in from the right. You can see the MasterCard pops up because it is a MasterCard, as well as what they're spending their money on. And when I click back, it's just going to transition over to the other side. And this is about it. So I just want to talk a little bit about the last slide that I have here today, which is if you want to get started with OutSystems, you can go to outsystems.com/free edition. It's very quick to install. It's also available for both web and for both Windows and Mac.
Well, that is a very direct and compelling demonstration, and there's a lot to unpack, and I have several questions before we get to questions from the audience. First of all, that offer that you just made there is one that I noted because it's even more compelling in that you can develop an app for up to 100 users, and you don't even have to they don't have to give you a credit card. They can just sign up and start developing. Is that how I understand it? Which is pretty good.
Yes, correct. So everything is completely free. So you can go ahead and get started with a free edition today and start playing around with it. And if you would like to extend your trial, you can do that. One of the funny anecdotes that we have is we do have people who get started on our free editions and they build an application and it actually makes them money. So I always think that's wonderful.
Well, 100 users, yeah. I mean, you can do some damage there.
Yeah.
So you showed obviously a lot about the UI UX design. One of the things that I'm curious about is the AI component that you guys have built into this. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've incorporated AI into the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have AI built in. It's called OutSystems.ai, and it intelligently suggests data types to you. It also intelligently suggests what kind of database you want to read information from. And if it sees an error in your code, it will actually pause and suggest the correct code for you.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Also, with regard to that free offer earlier, and what you built was essentially something from scratch, but there's a lot of application templates, as I understand it, that are pretty straightforward and would be really a good, easy way for people to create something in that free trial. Can you talk a little bit about how people might be using those?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of pre-existing applications that you can go in and import into your environment. You cannot import existing applications to OutSystems, but you can definitely use OutSystems to dramatically accelerate the process of rebuilding your applications, because you'll be able to reuse many of the existing assets like JavaScript libraries, CSS libraries, C# code, and integrating with legacy applications.
So you as the solutions architect, or as a solutions architect, are probably seeing a lot of different types of prospects and customers. Where are you seeing, where are you seeing traction these days with regard to maybe vertical or company size? In this sort of thing, and I appreciate it's probably all over the road, but maybe a few of the things that you see as notable.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I can answer that because we talk to a variety of customers of all different verticals. As you know, low code is becoming increasingly popular. Gartner said that by 2023, over 70% of companies are going to start using low code in some ways. So we have really large enterprise companies that come to us that want to use us to build very critical and large scale enterprise applications. But then we also have smaller companies that want to use OutSystems to just build one application first. And that's what we call our try, trust, and transform motion, which is when a smaller company or even an enterprise company come to us and they want to try out the platform to build an application. And once they trust us, then they start using OutSystems to transform their architecture.
Yeah, neat. So that leads me to a question I always ask, because I think it's a question that our audience cares about. And that is, first of all, what should they be thinking about in preparation for contacting OutSystems and starting to think about developing a low-code approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of implementation, when it comes to OutSystems, it's pretty simple. Like I said, we have the free personal environment available for everybody. But in addition to that, we also have training paths with videos and exercises that teach you how to build both reactive and mobile applications, as well as deeper dives into how to integrate with REST or SOAP APIs and how to integrate with business processes and timers.
Well, and there's a whole host of support like that, right? There's obviously there's the Forge and the other templates that you've created, but as I see it on your site, you've got forums, you've got user groups, tech talks. Talk a little bit about the approach that you're taking to build the community that's using OutSystems, and also how to help people continue down the path.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, we do have forums for OutSystems, and we have a very extensive OutSystems developer community. With our Forge, it's all open source. Anyone can go in and add an application to our Forge. Some of them are supported by OutSystems itself, some are not, some are just independent applications that developers create. And like you said, our forums are very popular, and we do have OutSystems developers that are there to help with answering any questions that developers might have.
Okay, now I'm going to start getting into some of the questions that we're getting here. How does integration work with OutSystems? Is a question that we've gotten.
Yes, so that is a very good question. In terms of integration, we can integrate with a large scale of different applications and databases, depending on the kind of integrations. So I guess the short answer is integration is very easy. Developers manage the configurations of integrations without the need to write custom code, and it reduces the time and the effort, and it also eliminates errors. Integrations with SOAP and REST services and SAP systems is already built in. And OutSystems generates all the methods and the data structures to integrate with the external system. And then developers can use them visually in the application logic. So from a developer's perspective, there's almost no difference between invoking an OutSystems method, a REST API, or a SAP API. So there's a ton of pre-built connectors available in our Forge, and you can use those connectors in your OutSystems applications.
All right. I'm not sure whether you answered this one or not, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How does OutSystems help to manage an application after it's been built?
Yeah, so we actually have something called Lifetime. Lifetime is our centralized console for managing your OutSystems environment. You can manage your applications as well as its security, and it covers the full application lifecycle from development to deployment.
Great. So I think you covered if it can be used to build large enterprise applications. Do you have any examples you care to use of larger customers that may be a case study these days?
Oh gosh, yes, we have a lot. So one of our largest ones, I would say, would be Verizon and T-Mobile. Another one would probably be Logitech and FICO. So with FICO, I'm sure we're all familiar with it. They actually rebuilt their customer engagement solution from the ground up in a third of the time using OutSystems. I think they built the application in 7 months versus what it would have been, which was 2 months with 11 developers. And since then, they launched something like 24 applications since their initial development. And I think what they said was they reduced their development hours by almost 75%.
Yeah, that's incredible. Those are certainly good name brands to have. We have a question about facilitating App Store deployment.
Yeah, that's a good question. So OutSystems, we use the Cordova framework to generate mobile applications. So at its core, it's a responsive JavaScript application that's wrapped by a native shell. So the OutSystems platform takes care of generating native builds for both Android and iOS with all required content. So developers only really need to use a single code base.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about engagement. So you're right there at the probably at the pointy end of the stick most of the time with that sort of thing. How does it work in terms of timing? Who's involved typically when you're engaging with a prospect or a customer? And again, what type of advice would you offer them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot of venues to that. So I think last year with the Solution Spotlight, we had John Sullivan on. He's on our White Glove team. And our White Glove team is actually one of the first points of contacts for someone who's coming to our website and they want to see a trial or they want to see a demo of our application. So we have our White Glove team that's there available to help answer any questions. We also, of course, have our account executives who work very closely with some of our clients. And as a solution architect, I work very closely with the account executive to show and demo a lot of the platform capabilities and integrations that we offer. The last question I think you had was what's advice I would give them.
Good for remembering.
I think the only advice I would give you is to download the free personal edition, try it out, play around. It's very easy. We have a lot of resources for you, and I think you guys will really enjoy it.
Excellent. So are you seeing any themes around what folks are looking to innovate? I mean, is it that they're trying to take data that they are not getting value out of right now and trying to extract that, or are they more trying to just improve business process in general? Or I mean, obviously, it's probably a little of everything. But where are you seeing trends?
Yeah, I will say one of the trends that I see is with companies that want to integrate with their legacy applications or legacy databases, and they want to really modernize it. So with OutSystems, we support integration with MS SQL, Oracle, MySQL, DB2, MongoDB. And for anything else, you can build your own custom connectors and import them into OutSystems using Integration Studio.
That's good. I think you just answered my next question with that answer. So excellent. Well, outstanding. Look, I don't think we have much more to cover. I'm curious what you're seeing as you know, we're going through these transitional moments in time. Obviously, we're all getting out a little bit more, maybe collaborating a little bit more easily. What are you seeing over the next 6 months through the end of the year as opportunities, not only for folks using low code, but an opportunity for OutSystems as well?
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar, but with OutSystems, we actually had an event last year. It was called Next Step. And with OutSystems, we are trying to stay on top of the trends. And we actually have a product that's going to be coming out the next few months. It's actually called Project Neo. And with Neo, it is an open system architecture that is supposed to make development teams 100 times more productive. And small teams will be able to build mission critical applications in a few weeks. And with Project Neo, we're going to be running on cloud native microservices, on Kubernetes and Linux containers, Docker container technology with AWS, EKS, and .NET 6 Core. So with OutSystems, we are constantly trying to be the best, offer the best for all of our customers, and really just stay on top of using all the modern applications and modern technologies.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled to have OutSystems back on the spotlight. You guys are clearly the leading provider in low code these days. I mean, even you can see it in our research that we're doing at Gartner Peer Insights. You're a customer choice there, and you know some of the comments are pretty amazing, easy to use, great experience, exceeded my expectations, a whole new way of developing. So well done, excellent presentation today. Thanks very much for your time, and best of luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Shinan and OutSystems for the fine presentation today, and we appreciate your attention as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.